Hello and welcome to Audible River. I'm Alan Rice, and I'm very happy to have with me Joan Parisi Wilcox, author of Masters of the Living Energy, about the mystical world of the Carol people of Peru. Since 1993, Joan has interviewed and studied with masters of the Andean mystical traditions and is now herself a leading expert, practitioner, and teacher of the spiritual arts of Peru. Hello, Joan. It's great to see you today.
Hi, Alan. Thank you for having me, and hello to all your listeners.
You know, one of the thing that I kind of want to hear from you to begin with is about the Caro people themselves. What is special about the Caro people?
Well, the Caro are a nation that live up in the south central Andes of Peru, and they're recognized by anthropologists and by actually the country of Peru, the government of Peru, as having preserved the not ancient, but the old traditions, especially the Inca traditions, and in certain respects, in a way that is most true to the history. So they weave very special kinds of patterns that were customary with the Inca weavings. Their form of Quechua, the Quechua is the indigenous language of Peru. It is a very different and refined form of Quechua. So they're seen as holding the tradition in a way that has been lost in other parts of the mountains of Peru or other peoples of Peru. And so they have been recognized by other kinds of Pacos from other, non-Caro Pacos as really the masters. And most people go to work with the Caro. I do have to say, though, that the Andean tradition as a mystical tradition is not just Caro. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The Caro are one of many nations and that hold the same cosmovision and have the mystical practices. But it's kind of a misstatement to say this is a Caro tradition. The Caro is one very highly honored and respected aspect of the tradition, but it's a larger Andean tradition, meaning it's the tradition of the mountain region of Peru.
So you mentioned the word Paco. What is a Paco?
Paco is translated various ways. The most common way is healer, but the more general kind of colloquial, common way of understanding it is just simply a practitioner of the Andean sacred arts, a holder of this more ancient cosmovision and its practices.
So the sacred arts, how would you categorize the sacred arts? Is this mystical, shamanic? Is it religious? How would you generally say what it is?
Yeah, that's a very kind of complex question up for debate, depending on your own worldview and background. I tend to see it as mystical rather than shamanic because I think the word shaman has become to mean just whatever you want it to mean today.
Mm-hmm.
And but I come from an academic background, as does my primary teacher, Juan Nunes del Prado, who is truly the expert in the tradition. And the word shamanism is a certain kind of practice in which you use an induction technique to enter an altered state of consciousness. And in that altered state of consciousness, then you can expand your normal abilities to kind of meta-normal abilities and interact with the living universe. But that's not what the Andean tradition is about. We're not looking to, we don't have to work in an altered state of consciousness. We don't have to use any induction techniques. The beauty, the grace, the simplicity of the Andean tradition is that we can engage with the living universe in our normal waking state of consciousness. So for me, it's about personal connection. And that to me is a much more mystical pursuit than it is a shamanic pursuit. So I call it a mystical tradition. My teacher, Juan, doesn't even like to do that, and he just calls it the Andean sacred arts. Kind
Okay.
of devoid of all kinds of backstory.
Right. So it sounds like it's something. It's a what you're describing. It's a personal experience with everything else. It's is that I know I'm
Yeah,
really
yes,
generalizing.
That's absolutely accurate. There's an amazingly beautiful and quite comprehensive cosmovision, meaning looking at what it means for there to be a created manifest universe, what our place in it is, how we can interact with this living universe. But the practice itself is it's a you know what? I forget what your original question was.
It's
Sorry.
okay. Just where's your mind going to go now? That's fine.
Yeah, right.
So I think that you know, I think that what I'm trying to get at here is it's experiential. I mean
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
that it's like
Yeah,
more
I
based
got
on
it.
personal experience,
Yes,
perhaps.
experiential.
Yeah.
So where I was going was that there is this, we could talk philosophically about this amazingly beautiful cosmovision, but as my teacher Juan and the Pacos would say, don't believe a word we say. Just do the practices. This is about action. It's about doing the practices and then reaping the results, reaping the gifts and the benefits of it. So there's a there's a human power. One of the three major aspects of being human, it's called yachai. And yachai is usually um, translated from the Quechua to mean logic, reason, understanding, knowing. But it's more than that. Yachai is knowing, understanding gained through experience,
Hmm.
firsthand personal experience. It's not knowledge that people listening to us, they're getting secondhand knowledge, reading a book, listening to a podcast, watching TV or whatever.
Hmm.
But this is a tradition that says just work the energies, work your own mystical capacities, and you will see transformations and change within yourself, benefits within yourself. And then you will know because you've experienced them firsthand.
So that's really what it's not. It's less about believing and more about the actually knowing through experience, through your own
It,
practice.
it, exactly. There's really no dogma.
Hmm.
There are certain aspects of the cosmovision you have to believe or accept in order, because it's explaining the energy dynamics to us.
Hmm.
And what we're doing is working with energy and our
Hmm.
own energy and the energies of the living universe. So there are certain core concepts that you have to at least accept, but there's no dogma, there's no belief. The Pacos and Juan like to say, you can be an atheist Paco, you can be a Christian Paco, you can be a Jewish Paco, or whatever,
Hmm.
because it's not about a belief system. It's about an experience of being human in a living, conscious universe that interacts with us.
So let's talk a little bit about their cosmological vision. I mean, to put a framework, like you were alluding to that, and my kind of based on what you were talking about there, the personal experience part. If this is a tradition that's based on personal experience, I would imagine that somewhere along the way, you know the Caro people have had some sort of personal experience that have brought them to this framework of the cosmology, right? Something.
Yeah.
It isn't just like, well, this is what it must be. So, talk a little bit about your understanding of the Caro cosmology.
Yeah. Well, the Caro and the larger Andean um, mystical view is that it's a living universe, that there is some conscious agency, and that there's a Kausai Pacha, which is an unmanifest realm of Kausai. Kausai is the life force energy. And its most refined aspect is Sami, which is light living energy. And everything is comprised of this life force energy. So we're not just part of the living universe, we are an aspect of the living universe. We're comprised of this living energy as well. And so our true nature is to be in a beautiful personal interchange with this living universe. That nature and the unmanifest universe, the spirit beings, all kinds of influences are there to support us. We're never alone. We're always in interchange with the living universe. We can be empowered by it, and that we can grow our consciousness to become more and more deeply attuned to what our true nature is and what our true relationship is with this living universe. And so the practices are basically about honing our perceptions, our sensitivity to ourselves as energy beings, and making these energetic interchanges with the universe so that we can actually experience the way we're an integral, inseparable, intrinsic part of the living universe. And we can contribute to it, and we can be empowered by it.
Interesting. There is actually a lot of new science that supports some of the things that you're talking about. I mean, there's been a debate for a long time about what is consciousness, where does it come from, and that sort of thing. And so there was a belief for a long time that consciousness is just it's just an accident that happens when all the molecules and atoms start working in a certain way. But once the experiments and the information that was coming from the study in the field of quantum physics got into the mix, this idea, the proof was that consciousness is affecting reality, that what we think is that there is an interchange. There is a real, actual, measurable interchange of what we're thinking and observing and the physical world. And so this has blossomed into a lot of things. And now there's this concept of panpsychism where everything is conscious. And so this is a real discussion that's going on in scientific and academic communities now, which it's very interesting that you have the Q'ero people, or the ancient Inca, who had this understanding for a long time.
Yes, actually, I was just talking to my students the other day in a class that I think panpsychism is the closest thing to the cosmovision of the Andes. But there are many forms of panpsychism. It has its own problems. There are many forms of panpsychism. But quantum, I think, is also relevant, but we have to be really careful about turning science into just pure metaphor, or
Right.
making, or extending correlations too much. But basically, I believe that science is running smack dab into consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
That they're not going to be able to go very much farther in terms of a theory of everything.
Right.
Unless they deal with the question of consciousness. And many scientists now are becoming philosophic that way and having to deal with what consciousness is. Panpsychism is one of many theories about how consciousness is a fundamental aspect, perhaps even first cause of a manifest universe.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting. And so, speaking about that, in the Andean tradition, do they have a way of understanding or addressing an overall consciousness, relating to a consciousness that everyone relates to? I'm speaking. Kind of like a deity, but
Yeah.
I don't want to nail it into calling it a deity. But let's just say, what would you?
Yeah, interestingly, the Andeans have many names for God. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The most common being Wiracocha. My favorite name is, well, I'm not going to go into all the Quechua, but it translates into English as the Great Joiner God, Hatun Take Wiracocha, the Great Joiner God, which is the God in which all things are connected, from which all things come, and to which all things go, and there can be no possible separation. Okay. So there, of course, at a more mundane level, there were we could call it deities, okay? They would just call them nature spirits.
Hmm.
It's not like they worshiped them, though. That's the distinction. In a religious sense, we worship gods. In the mystical sense, we simply connect with energies.
Mm.
And there are energies that we can use the English words of their form. We could call them spirit beings. Beings because they're conscious of us and we can be conscious of them. Okay, so for instance, there's 7 universal spirit beings, and Father Sun, Mother Earth, the mother of the waters, Father Wind, those kinds of things. And they have a certain existence and consciousness of their own.
So is there particular spiritual entity? Oh, well, okay, right. So I'm at a loss for words because that I don't know Quechua and I'm not sure. This is a very different way of looking at things. So,
Yeah,
but like what generally, okay. And first of all, one of the things I'm thinking about is this isn't like religious worship. This is the relationship. This is like
yeah,
understanding a relationship and being conscious of who we are and who these other beings are, great or
yes,
small,
yeah.
other spirit beings. And so, what about a mother spirit? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Let me go back to your previous question because I really didn't answer it
Okay.
precisely. And
Okay.
that is there is this overarching God. We can call it Titantius.
Oh.
Titantius means our Father. But this is beyond gender, okay? It's just a function of language, our Father,
Hmm.
which is equivalent to whatever the unknowable creative first cause is, whatever started everything,
Hmm.
the originating consciousness, okay? And then from this realm of the unmanifest, okay, through the will or the intent of this consciousness, a manifest realm um, came into being. And in this manifest realm, there are 2 great creatrix energies, Pachataita and Pachamama, Father Cosmos and Mother Cosmos. And everything in the creative world involves the duality of this. They see it in terms of a Yanantan, which are 2 different energies that come together and that make up the whole is greater than the parts, but the parts have no meaning separate from each other.
Okay.
So a Yanantan would be like day, night, right, left,
Oh, I see.
in,
Right.
out.
There, it's a
And
right.
male and female is that way too. We have to get beyond gender, and we just have to see it as there is some form which we can call male and female. We don't really know what it is. They see it as male and female that come together and create the manifest world. And this is the Father Cosmos energy and the Mother Cosmos energy, which then give birth to the physical world.
And so, what about the physical world? So, I mean, how do they? So, everything is living, right?
Yes.
So, if the world is living, does the world itself, as a living being, have an overall presence, energetic presence?
Yes, and it depends on the context of the use of the word world. There are 2 worlds, we could say. There's the cosmos, the entire manifest universe. The name that's used for this is Pachamama.
Okay.
Pacha means a lot of things. It's a very rich word in Quechua. It means world, realm. Um, it also means dirt, earth.
Hmm.
Okay,
Okay. Okay.
it also means space and time, but is entwined. You can't separate space and time. They're Yanantan. Okay.
Okay.
So Pachamama literally can be translated as the mother of the manifest cosmos or the mother of space-time. So the Pachamama is the entire created cosmos, which is a living being. Then we have the earth. The
Okay.
earth is also a living being, and the earth has her own name, Mama Alpa. Alpa also means earth or dirt, okay, as in the substance. And is an interesting distinction that the Andeans make. using those two words, because you very rarely hear them talk about the living being of the earth as Mama Alpa.
Hmm.
They commonly use the word Pachamama to refer to the planet Earth.
Hmm.
And the distinction is that the word Pachamama carries with it a deep sense of the sacred.
Oh.
And so when they're talking about Mother Earth as a sacred spirit being, they just kind of reduce the word Pachamama from meaning cosmic mother to earth mother. And they're also the Q'ero and the other peoples of indigenous peoples of the Andes, they're farmers and herders. So they rely on the physical earth for survival.
Hmm.
And so when they talk about Mama Alpa, when they use the name Mama Alpa, they're referring to the dirt that they're, working to plant crops in and to, grow feed for their animals and stuff. So they're both sacred, but the term Pachamama is more commonly used because it does imbue the entire cosmos and the earth itself as sacred, as living, as conscious beings.
So Pachamama would also include all living beings and all everything, right?
Everything. That's the technical term of, like, the technical meaning of Pachamama is the mother of space-time. She is the entire created cosmos.
Wow.
Mama Alpa is the planet Earth. But as I say, that they commonly just call the earth Pachamama too. So sometimes when you're talking with a Paco or you're talking with, like, me as a teacher, I almost always use the term Pachamama to mean the entire created universe, and I'll use Mama Alpa to refer to the earth.
Well, I mean, it is nice to have a distinction about what you're talking about. I mean, but and I get that, but the Mama Alpa would actually be part of Pachamama, right?
Yes, because she's just a small little part of the whole created universe, just
Right.
like Mars and Venus and Saturn are as well. They're all
Uh-huh.
spirit beings. The Earth is a planet. We happen to live on it, but they're all spirit beings. It's interesting, though, that the Quechua peoples of the Andes call the Mama Alpa, the planet Earth, the womb of Pachamama.
Oh,
She's
interesting.
the womb of the cosmic mother. She's the womb from with which who has birthed us. And all the things we know in our world is not just circumscribed to the earth, but we tend to focus there, you know. But it's anyway, so
Okay, now, all right. So you've got Pachamama. This is really interesting what you said, that the earth is the womb of Pachamama, right? So
yes,
Pachamama is the great cosmic mother, right? And
yes.
so we live on the womb and we are born now. But it goes back in my mind, logically, if we have a mother, we have a father. I mean, okay, again, maybe metaphorically we're speaking.
Yeah.
So so what would we say is the other aspect? I mean, the like the you have
Pachataita.
Pachataita.
Pachataita, who is the cosmic father.
Okay.
Okay. Actually, the created manifest world would be as a result of the interaction, the transformational interaction of Father Cosmos and Mother Cosmos. Okay. Which are the true creative principles that come from the singularity that is whatever creator is.
Hmm. Okay. Oh, I see. I see. So now you're almost getting into. I mean, that just made me think of the Trinity, right? So you have like the singular
Mm.
source, and then you have the male and female aspects emerging. I mean, that's like gets into like the Christian
Yeah.
cosmology, but it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that because the Andeans are what just about every Andean Paco you talk to would also say they're Christians.
Oh, interesting.
They were introduced to Christianity through the conquest, okay, in the 15, in the 14, what I forget what the date is now. My mind's gone blank, but 1530 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, when Francisco Pizarro and the conquerors, they brought Christianity to Peru, what's present day Peru. And they have no conflict with Christianity because their view of Christianity is, Juan explained this to me once, that their view of Christianity is really a 16th century kind of view, a view of, I won't go into all of the Christian part of it, but more like Saint Francis Assisi, and who is just really connected to nature. Okay,
Hmm.
but they have a sense of the energetics of humanity, and they see that we have three human. I'm just going to give you one example of why Christianity was so easy for them to accept.
Hmm.
Not the whole dogma of Rome, okay,
Right.
but the core underlying principles of Christianity. So, for instance, we have three human powers: Yachai, Yankai, and Munai.
Hmm.
Yachai, the understanding through experience; Yankai, the ability to be active in the world, to do things, to create and take action; and Munai, which is love under your will. It's not a romantic love, it's the choice for love.
Hmm.
So when they heard in the New Testament, as they were being Christianized in the New Testament, love your God with all of your strength, your mind, and your heart, they
Oh,
heard, oh, love your God with your yankai, your yachai, and your munai. That Christ identified the three core human powers, that they identified as the three core human powers, that if we use them well, if we develop them to their highest, most refined capacities, allow us to live in a more heaven-like environment, to live a sumak kausai, a happy and joyful and productive life.
wow. So that was a really easy transition. The way that you explained it, I mean, that could be
Yeah.
exciting to someone hearing this. It's like, oh, wow, that is, yeah, your religion is very much like what we are
So the New
experiencing.
Testament,
Mhm. The New Testament.
the New Testament, the Christ messages,
Hmm.
because they saw Christ as a sixth level human being.
Uh-huh.
Not the Caro, but it's a different lineage of the Andes, the lineage of a master called Don Benito Corihuaman, which is the Cusco lineage. It's a different lineage than Caro. They identify a stairway of the development of human consciousness
Okay.
that we climb, called
Hmm.
the conscious patanyan.
Hmm.
And there's the seven levels to it. The sixth level is the level of the enlightened human being. So when they see Christ and Christ's ability, just like if they were introduced to Buddhism, they would see Buddha in the same way. They
Right.
would take to it in the same way. They see Christ as a prototype, as a human example of an enlightened human being. And so they could easily identify with Christ as a prototype of the sixth level human being. So there's just so many parallels. But as I say, it's stripped of the dogma of Rome and the organizational Catholic Church
Hmm.
and that dogma, but it's at the heart of Christianity. And really, it's at the heart of most religions.
That is interesting. I mean, that when you get down to what people, when you're seeking for truth, when you're
Yeah.
honest and you're looking for the things that are fulfill us as human beings, it does match up, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
if right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, it's that opens an interesting discussion that's very, very relevant to all of us right now.
Hmm.
That on this conscious Pantanyan and the developmental process for refining human consciousness and greater self-awareness, and being in greater and more efficient and graceful and beautiful interchange with the living universe. Most of the world is at what we call the third level,
Hmm.
and some of the world is at the fourth level. And the great struggle in the world now is for us to just lift all of humanity up from the third to the fourth level. And the level at the one of the characteristics of the third level, and I need to say that there are beautiful and refined characteristics, and there are heavy and less refined characteristics at each level. You
Okay.
can live a beautiful life at the first, second, third, fourth level. But the heavier aspects of the third level have to do with believing in good and evil, right and wrong. I have the truth and you don't have the truth, so I have to save your soul. Okay, it's looking at distinctions. What makes us different?
Hmm.
Therefore, it becomes very competitive. It becomes very judgmental about right and wrong. Okay. The fourth level we transcend that kind of duality, and we see that we can get beyond white or black or any ethnicity or gender or political persuasion or religious persuasion and see, we're just all human beings. Oh, we're all just seeking the same God. We
Nice.
have different forms, just like we have different skin colors and different choices for our spiritual persuasions and our political persuasions. But at heart, we're all human beings. At heart, it's the singular consciousness, the singular creator God. We're all seeking our way to recognize we are an aspect of. So the fourth level is what you just were saying, that we're getting, and that's the great struggle in the world right now, because there's a terrible fear about giving up the known.
Mhm.
As Juan says, the third level is about certainty. Things are easy because there's a lot of rules, and you know what you need to do and how you need to be accepted and loved and approved of. But the fourth level, we're artists of the self. We're artists of our consciousness. We're artists of how we interchange with creator in the unmanifest and manifest world. It's complete. It's much more about freedom, where the third level is much more about um, fitting in and following the rules. And this is the great struggle in the world right now. We see the chaos
Yeah.
of trying to break out of these very rigid containers we've put our belief containers we've put ourselves in, to be able to see at the fourth level that it's about cooperation. It's about how we're alike rather than how we're different. And that's a struggle that we're in right now.
Boy, is that easy to see. When you put it that way, I mean, yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, my mind was just going through all sorts of scenarios that are really evident right now that
Yeah,
that are just perfect illustrations of this. I mean, when you said
yeah.
conflict, I mean, the fourth level obviously is not about conflict, but the change is a conflict. I mean, there are people obviously who would be resisting and not wanting to
Yeah.
move along. Okay, we're right with.
Human beings that resist change. They always, we always talk about wanting change and new things, or always, lusting after the next new shiny thing and changing jobs and moving where we live. And we love change, change, change. But when it comes to our beliefs,
Yeah.
we're very rigid. We're very resistant to change because beliefs require us to grow,
Hmm.
to change our identity, to shift our identity in some core ways, and to believe, who we are. And anyway, we could get deep into psychology around that. But change, it generates a lot of fear. And the chaos that we're seeing in the world is generated by this fear and this clinging to what is known and resisting exploring what we are, but we still don't know we are.
Wow. So who we are brings me to a question about you have a wonderful website and a blog that I mean the things that you write about are just amazing, and I would recommend anyone to read the things that you write about it regarding these these teachings that we're talking about. But one of the things I want to get information on, and when you're talking about who we are, very interesting thing I want to learn more about is the Inka Seed, the thing that you call the Inka Seed. Tell me about that.
Yeah. And catch with the Inka Muyu, the Inka seed. Um, in this created world, we can look at it having, whether it's science or metaphysics, coming from some unknown first cause. And like in the manifest world, things were very, very, very simple. There wasn't much, okay? But there's this, Juan used this phrase with me once, and I just love it. He said, there's potential. And potential itself is a driving evolutionary force. So there was this potential as a driving force, and things that were very simple, say after the Big Bang, this potential drives it. It's an evolutionary process until greater and greater interaction, transformation, complexity, and beauty. Okay. And so we have this evolutionary force that we came from this unknown singularity point through the drive of potential for the interacting from the simple things becoming more and more beautiful and complex to the astonishing variety of the created world, the manifest world. Just the nature on this planet, it's astonishing, the complexity and the beauty and the variety. And the same is true for human beings, okay?
Oh,
That we come in as, a single cell that's fertilized and splits. We come out of the womb and we're pure and runa. We're raw, undeveloped, natural human beings. We can't even take care of ourselves. We're at
right.
the mercy of everything. We have next to no self-awareness. Okay, we have consciousness, but not awareness yet. So we're in a very simple, undeveloped state. And we are full of this life potential, though. And so there's the potential that drives the evolutionary process of the development of humans and human consciousness, so that as we grow, we become more complex, refined, hopefully, and astonishingly beautiful and creative human beings.
Hmm.
So in the physical body, this well of potential is the DNA in the center of this tiny, tiny little cell. And each of the 25, 30 trillion cells in our body, in the center of it is this tiny little energetic physical structure that is a huge information field. And the DNA then drives as potential this incredible complexity of development and beauty of development to the human form, including our consciousness, our creativity, our sacred apprehension of ourselves in the world, and all kinds of abstract things. And in our mystical self, we're both physical and mystical. DNA is the tiny energetic structure with the huge information of potential in our physical body. In our mystical body, the Inka seed is equivalent to that. It's a tiny little energetic structure in the center of our body, just below the sternum, halfway between the front and back of your body. And it's a tiny little energetic structure that is a huge information field. And it has this potential. It's a well of potential as a driving force, so that we go from this helpless, barely self-aware, but conscious being to, through our lives, to become more and more self-aware, more and more conscious, more and more use of our volition, our will, our creativity, our dreams, and all of those kinds of things. That is being fueled by the potential, the force of potential in our Inka seed. So it's the mystical equivalent, I think, of the DNA.
Interesting, interesting. So the Inca seed, this isn't a metaphor, an allegory. I mean, this is a real energy, and
It's an energetic structure.
energy.
We have a mystical body.
Hmm.
We're not taught about it, but most shamanic or mystical systems will tell us that we have a mystical body. We have an energy field. We might have different kinds of energetic configurations, structures, fields within us. For instance, in Hinduism, we have 7 chakras, or maybe more than 7 chakras. In the Andes, we have nyawis, mystical eyes. They're in our physical body.
Hmm.
We're just never taught to use them. Okay.
Interesting.
We have mystical, I like to say we have a mystical anatomy and a mystical metabolism.
Mm.
And that the training of, for instance, when I teach them what I call the foundation training, a 3-month training in this tradition, it's all about realizing what your mystical anatomy is and how to activate it, and what your mystical metabolism is, which are the energy dynamics, and using them to achieve certain goals,
Hmm.
which are to refine your consciousness, to be in more exquisite, efficient reciprocity with the living universe, to express your true nature, because each of us have the same, your Inka seed holds within it everything that's possible, everything that's possible for a human being to express to such a degree that when our Inka seed, when that potential is fully realized, we are godlike in physical form. We are basically the same as what we came from, what we are, whatever creator is in the Inca, in the human form.
Wow.
So our mystical anatomy trains us to develop our mystical capacities, and that is an integral part of refining our consciousness. There are other ways to refine consciousness through the body, through meditation, through yoga, through emotions and the mind and beliefs, which is psychology. There's lots of different ways to refine our consciousness. This is mystical systems are a way to do it purely energetically.
Interesting. So each of us has our own Inka seed.
Yes.
And,
We're basically a drop of whatever God is, whatever creator is.
oh, okay.
Okay. So the way they describe creation is that in this unmanifest realm of the Kausai Pacha, the Kausai Pacha is the realm of living energy. It's kind of like the Taoist, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao kind of a thing. And that, and Buddhism that refuses to put any kind of characteristics on or even talk about a God, so to speak.
Right.
It's unknowable. We don't know what it is. Different religious and spiritual systems try to define it, but defining it reduces it. What we do share among most traditions is that whatever this thing is, it can't know itself, because in order to know yourself, you have to be outside yourself.
There has to be someone to interact with, right?
There has to be an other.
Another, right.
Okay. Okay. So that there's a contrast. And that the manifest world is one of the ways, the way we know. There could be myriad other ways, but this is one of the ways that the unknowable, whatever first cause creator is, came to know itself. It split out from the self, and one of the manifestations is a physical world in human beings. We are, as Juan says, a drop of the mystery. Okay.
Wow.
So we are God. It's not that we are like God or creator, or that we're separated from God and we have to find our way back. We are it. We just have not realized the capacities of being it. We keep ourselves reduced, So our ultimate goal, stepping up this conscious patanyan of consciousness, is to realize that we are a drop of God, and to be that in the physical, not to leap beyond the human. We don't denigrate the body and see it as dirty and contaminating and corrupt. We don't denigrate the manifest world as some religions and spiritual systems do. It's all holy. It's all sacred.
Right.
We just want to realize and live with the fullness of our potential expressed. For my students, the best expression of this I've ever heard is from Sri Aurobindo, who's the founder of Integral Yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "We are where God's spirit meets God matter, and there is divinity in the body."
Interesting.
And that's a beautiful way to express the Andean view of what we are. Our Inka seed is the drop of God within us that we then want to evolve and grow and express in this world, in this body. And the way you're going to express your capacities is different than me. We're all unique. We all have the exact same potential, which is the potential of the all. But
Wow.
the way we're going to constellate our gifts and our capacities and our choices is going to be in a unique expression. I like to tell my students that one of the basic laws of the Andes is Aini, reciprocity, these interchanges, right?
Yeah, right.
And so we have an intention, we have action, we're doing something in the world, and the living universe is going to provide feedback to us. right?
Hmm.
I like to tell my students to just sit back sometime and contemplate the fact that you are God's feedback.
Interesting. Okay.
That puts your life in a whole different framework, that you are God's eye, and that everything you do and be and that you are and how you express yourself is providing God feedback on one aspect of itself, because we each provide whatever God is a unique view of its entirety. We're one little, we use the Buddhist term, we're one little facet on the diamond body of God, but you have to have all the facets shining to see the whole jewel, you know.
Wow, that's really amazing. Well, I grew up in a Christian tradition, Christian teachings, and the sort of thing that I get imbued with, and that and that in the Christian church, um, it's more of like a one-way street, where
Yeah,
God is
exactly.
out there, and
Yep.
God want, and I'm to obey God, and
Yes.
I'm about reaching for God, and all. But what you're talking about is recognizing the importance of the what you call the Anya, the relationship,
Yeah.
that I have an importance to the divinity, that I'm an.
You're not just an importance,
Uh-huh.
you're I don't even know what the word is. You're essential.
Essential. Okay.
You're essential. There are two kinds of spiritual traditions. I mean, just every spiritual tradition can be slotted into one of or two of these kind of containers.
Okay.
There are ascending traditions and descending traditions.
Okay.
Christianity, in most of its forms, and most major religions are ascending traditions. That means God is up there
Mm-hmm.
and we're separate from it. We have to earn or deserve our way back toward being accepted by, embraced by God. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the body is corrupt. That's what sin and temptation is all about. The world is corrupt. We're fallen.
Mm.
Okay.
Right. Right.
We're in original sin. Descending traditions, which are what most shamanic and mystical systems are, say whatever first cause is, this conscious impulse for life, has come down, and the manifest world is an expression of it. And it is inherently in everything, not just in everything. That's kind of more animism. It is everything. Okay.
Okay.
And so we are an expression of it. We are it. We're not separate from it. We're all already saved. We're part of whatever God is, and we can never be separate from it. We're going back to where we came from, which is to be part of the body of God, to use a metaphor. Okay. But the descending tradition then sees everything as sacred. It's like the resacralization of the world.
Wow.
This world is not, we're not fallen, we're not corrupt. The world is not evil, but it is sacred, and we
Wow.
are sacred.
That's
So
beautiful.
it's their opposite views of being. It's all about epistemology and ontology, how we know what we know and what it all means. And the ontology and epistemology of an ascending tradition is completely different than what we know and how what we make it mean in a descending tradition, which is what most earth-based shamanic and um, mystical traditions are about.
Well, the ascending tradition, I mean, I'm not to make a judgment, but it seems like it's more fit to the third level you were talking about, and the descending tradition is more fit to a fourth level, a cooperative kind of,
Yeah.
way of living, right?
Well, I think original, they say shamanism's the oldest, shaman's the oldest profession, even older than prostitution. That's a kind of now politically incorrect sexist thing, but it's one of the oldest expressions of humanity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most originating indigenous traditions were this sacred reciprocity with the living universe and the earth, not only because our survival depended upon it when we were undeveloped culturally and technologically and so forth and consciously, but they were just they weren't separate from the natural world. They were part of the natural world. But as culture developed, power structures developed, and the matriarchy got overtaken by the patriarchy. Nothing against patriarchy, but it's about hierarchy and power structures and dominance. And the in some respects, not in all, I'm not putting down any spiritual tradition, but the way that they have become organized, almost corporate,
Mm-hmm.
has caused them to be wildly third level.
Okay, right. I see. So
Where the indigenous traditions were fourth level. We're all human. We're all part of nature. The distinctions were not absolute.
Right. Well, you know what? Everything that you've said today is giving me some really beautiful images for the progress of humanity, for the progress of us as people relating to each other. I mean, the visions of the Karo cosmology, the Indian teachings. These are wonderful things to take to heart, especially. The Inka Seed, that was particularly touching to me. That relationship
Yeah.
that we have, and that we all have this part of whatever that purity that is our own potential. And I want to thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a wonderful talk that we've had together, Joan.
Right. Could I just end with one comment?
Yeah,
Because
please.
the Andean tradition is a very hopeful tradition. It's a positivity to it. Its stance is positivity. And I tell my students, don't be in despair about the condition of the world right now. This is what it looks like to transform. This is what the struggle looks like to move from the third to the fourth level, because the Andean tradition is not just about our individual transformation in consciousness, but the transformation of the human species. Their prophecies are all about lifting up the whole human species to the Runakai Masak, the new kind of humanity.
Wow.
And we're in the midst of it. So while it's ugly, it is also part of the process. It's like a caterpillar has to dissolve itself and get all gooey and mushy and before it becomes a butterfly, to use a kind of corny metaphor.
Yeah.
But it's relevant. So I'm very hopeful that we're doing the work. We're finally doing the work.
There is definitely something going on.
Yeah. So, well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And thank you to all your listeners.
You are very welcome, Joan. Great to have you.
Yeah. Could I just mention my website if people are interested in that?
Yes.
It's actually just a blog site. It's a WordPress. It's kentiwasi.com. QENTIWASI, means House of the Hummingbird. And I write specifically about the Andean tradition.
And I will definitely be putting the link to that in the program notes if anyone wants to take a look at that, and just click on that and go straight to Joan's website, kentiwasi.com. Thank you. Thank you very much, Joan.
You're welcome. Have a beautiful day.
You too. And that is all for this episode of Audible River. And I love hearing from our listeners, so if you have any thoughts to share about our podcast, please email us at audibleriverpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.